Just over 5 months ago, I made a huge change in the type of smartphone that I carry on a day-to-day basis when I went from a Galaxy Note 10 Plus to the iPhone 11 Pro Max. It was the first time that I used an iPhone as my primary phone for any length of time. Even when I did reviews on the iPhone 10R and 11, it was really just a quick little quip. Maybe I use it here and there for the week just to kind of give you an idea if it was worth the time and money. This, on the other hand, has been in my pocket as my main phone for now almost 6 months. And as someone who came from Samsung for well over a decade, as a matter of fact, my first Android phone was the G1. Some of you don't even know what that is. I have a lot of thoughts still about the iPhone 11 Pro Max. Still the best iPhone they've ever come out with, the first one that ever made me switch. And while a lot of my experience lately has been really good, there's still some things that I'm just not digging about this thing. And why I'm going to eventually, of course, buy another Android phone or two in 2020. I'll tell you what all those things are right after this.
This is, you know you listening to Travis.
What up, players? Welcome back. And for all you new people, welcome. My name's Travis and I do tech videos every single week and have a blast doing them. If that sounds like fun to you, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Anything I talk about will be in the description below. But for now, let's just get into the video. So there's a couple of things I need. Oh, wait, this is the green leather case, which looks really awesome on this thing, but let me put my custom case on. Hang on one second. Ah, that's much better. My logo and everything in wood. That's some savage stuff right there. So while I've had a lot of great experiences with this phone, and I've been able to use it in ways that I never thought I would, there are some things I do miss about Android. Now, recently, you may have seen me doing a new series on my channel called the Amazon Renewed series, where I go and buy what are essentially refurbished and older phones and use them in 2020. Recently, I did the Galaxy S10 Plus. Now, I never owned the Galaxy S10 Plus in 2019. I had the Note 10 Plus. So getting back into Android after being on this thing for 6 months was really interesting and kind of eye-opening to some of the things that I was missing out on iOS. But again, there's some really great things in iOS that aren't in Android. So let's break down some of the things that I like and don't like about being a Samsung user who converted to iPhone, who may go back to Samsung, or at the very least, OnePlus. First of all, let's talk about when I bought this thing. I made a mistake, I'm not gonna lie. While I think that it's an absolute travesty that Apple sold a phone that they called a Pro and started it at 64 gigabytes is ridiculous. Now, Apple will do this because they can get away with it. People continue to buy Apple phones even when they're cutting all types of corners on the specs, and I can't stand that. So when you get a Pro, you had an option to go between 64 or 256 gigs. There was no 128 for the Pro Max, which is what I got, which I probably would have gone with. So I got the 256 for two reasons. And I guess I was wrong. You see, number one, I got it because I knew 64 gigs was not going to be enough storage. I was going to shoot 4K footage on occasion and be able to use some of it for my YouTube channel, which I have done. Matter of fact, I've been using this phone as my B-roll camera for this channel for the last couple of weeks now, and no one has seemed to notice. It seems to get just as good quality as some DSLRs. That's actually kind of interesting. And I figured I would need the extra space for that. And again, without 128, I had to go all the way up to 256. So I paid way too much money for this phone. I don't even remember how much it was. I practically fainted walking out of the Apple store after I paid all that money, which I was not happy about. Especially considering you have a company like OnePlus who came out with the OnePlus 7 Pro last year at $256 for $750 with UFS 3.0. That being aside, I will say this. I was wrong on my storage assumptions. I thought I would be somewhere in the near 100 gig range. I'm not using anywhere near that much. To my surprise, I'm only using 33 gigs of this storage. And that includes like shooting B-roll and stuff. And of course, I try to prune stuff as much as I can. I don't take a tremendous amount of pictures or anything, at least not anything that's not part of the YouTube channel. And then after I'm done with them, I usually delete them. So I could have gone with the 64 gig. It just wouldn't have felt right, but I guess I could have. So that's one of the first things I don't like, the fact that they made me choose between 64 and 256 gigs when 128 should have been an option. I mean, Apple, what's going on here? Now, one of the things that I have never really gotten used to is some of the interface on iOS, especially since I'm so used to the way Samsung allows you to do certain things. For example, even to this day, I still can't figure out when I'm bringing down the notification shade versus like a search thing versus the settings thing. Like Apple has you do a similar motion for 3 different things and I just never can seem to remember them. Whereas with Android, you just swipe down from the middle of the screen and you get your notifications and your setting, like all of it in one. Let me give you an example. If I swipe down from the middle, I get some of my most recent apps, but I'm not expecting that. I'm actually expecting my notifications. But if I go to the top right corner, I actually bring down the shortcuts, which is fine, I guess. But then if I go all the way to the top and bring it down, then I get my notifications, which is what I wanted to begin with. I would rather get the notifications just by swiping down from the top. I guess serious suggestion, I could turn that off. There's probably some other settings for that. But with Android and with the ability for Samsung to just give me what I want in one swipe and not 3, I feel like this is wasted. Now, while I appreciate the gesture system in general, there's still some things I'm not like overly excited about. For example, multitasking. When you do the swipe up and hold to bring up all of your most recent apps, you can't like clear them off all at one time like you can with Android. I get that like that's just a different thing, but when you get used to it, it's so nice. Like that's one way that I would just do periodic maintenance on my Android phone. I would hit the multitasking and then just hit clear all. It's just, I don't know, it's just something I'm used to. However, with this, when I pull up, I have to do this, which I don't want to do. Again, kind of a small gripe, but when you're using your phone every single day, every single thing starts to add up. I also don't like 1 or 2 other things. The lack of true multitasking is a pain in the butt. Like, if you have an Android phone, you know what multitasking is. You can get out of an app, you can, if you want, split screen multitask, which I don't really use, but I can appreciate if I ever did need it. There's a bunch of things that multitasking actually does that does not work on an iPhone. And for the life of me, if the processing power on an iPhone is so dramatically more powerful than an Android phone, and all the stats suggest that it is, why can't I do basic, true multitasking? I think this might be a bigger thing for maybe an iPad. I think it'd be better for that. You can do the split screen on iPad. You can't do that here on an iPhone. And again, while this isn't a huge deal for I think 90% of the people using phones, if you call it Pro, give me Pro features. But I will say this, even with all of those things that I don't like, there's a ton of things that I do. Like I said, the camera quality is great. So much so that I now use it as my B-roll camera and have no problems. Like, I can use it in videos where I shoot in 4K and it looks phenomenal. I've never done that before. I've never had to do that before, but now it makes it easier to be able to use my phone as my B-roll camera. In addition, AirDrop is so clutch. I do all my editing on an iPad Pro, and let me tell you something, taking the footage off of this, airdropping it over there without having to get a cord out or anything is amazing. And the processing power on this thing cannot be denied. Like, no part of this is a slow experience. No part of this is slow. Even the animations on the phone itself make it feel like it's faster than 60 Hertz, which is kind of a weird thing to say, especially since I love the OnePlus 90 Hertz screen so much. And there's no way you can argue this next point. You can be upset about it if you want, especially if you're a Samsung Knight, but it's true. No denying this. The update system on Apple is superior in every way to Android. And I'm not talking about do you get better features, I'm talking about the fact that every single Apple device gets the update the same day. That's right, the same day. And as I've said on Android for a million times, you gotta get it from Google, then your manufacturer, which might be Samsung. Samsung's gotta do their thing to it. Then it goes down to the carrier's gotta do their thing, and then eventually you might get it 7 or 8 months later. Whereas day one, you can have the newest operating system and everything you need on iOS. Google needs to get on this. This is like literally the easiest thing that they've known they've needed to fix for many years. I don't know why it's taken this long. I will tell you this, that in all the bullying that Apple has done as far as to carriers and stuff, where they weren't gonna allow bloatware on their phones, which is another plus, no bloatware at all on any iPhone. That was one of the things they took in control, their ability to do updates whenever they want. I gotta hand it to them, it's pretty clutch. I also just love the way I never have to worry about compatibility with like any kind of app. Social media apps tend to be a little bit better on iPhone for some reason. They usually have extra features that like Android doesn't. I don't understand why that is. And there's even times where it comes out first on an iOS. And in my particular case, the editing software I use, LumaFusion, is only on iOS. There is no Android version. So for me, the compatibility has been awesome, excellent. And I gotta tell you, I'm just super happy. After 6 months, there's one more thing that I have to say that has been the best absolute best feature of this thing, hands down, and that is the battery life. Good goobly goo. Still to this day, I only have to charge it every other day. The battery life on the 11 Pro Max is on a level I've never seen before. Now, there are some new phones out right now, of course, the Galaxy S20 Ultra and that sort of thing, and most of those can probably get you through a day as well. But the battery life on this thing is savage. One other thing I want to mention, I do listen to a lot of podcasts and music on my iPhone, but I don't use AirPods. I don't think those things actually sound very good, and for the price, I don't know that you're getting really good quality. Instead, I use Anker Liberty 2 Pros. I actually like these so much, I bought 2 pairs of these, which is crazy because I don't like earbuds in general. I highly suggest you check these out. I'll leave a link in the description below. The amount of music and types of music and features this thing has is mind-numbing. And they're less expensive than AirPod Pros and about the same price as AirPods and sound tremendously better. So all in all, 6 months later, I'm really enjoying this phone. I really don't have any major complaints. Of course, there are some things like multitasking and stuff I wish would be better, and I wish I could figure out the notification thing in a little bit more, I don't know, native way, something that just makes more sense to me. But other than that, I'm happy. Having said all that, I am looking forward to going back to Android this year. Probably OnePlus 8 will be my next Android phone, and then we'll see what happens with the Note 20. I've actually talked about the Note 20 before, so you might want to check that video out here. I'm not really sure they should actually release it this year, but even if they do, or even if they don't, you know, I'm going to be here making videos regardless. Peace and love. See you next time.